Hi, everybody. Kevin Barheit here. Thanks for tuning in. We're still talking about the 5 pillars. Last week was pillar number 1. Pillar number 2 is sponsorship. We're going to focus on 3 areas: getting a sponsor, having and using that sponsor, and being a sponsor. My very first meeting that I went to, someone came in and put their hand on my shoulder and asked me how I was doing. Just about jumped out of my skin and left the meeting, but I came back the next week because someone had reached out to me. The second meeting that I went to, the topic was sponsorship. I walked out the door at the end and I stood on the front steps, and the same woman, Janet, who had put her hand on my shoulder, was standing there. And I said, "Janet, what's a sponsor?" And she said, "It's someone that you hear in the meetings and you identify with and you ask them to help you with the program." And I turned to this fella that was standing just mere inches away from me, and I looked at him and I said, "Will you be my sponsor?" And he looked at Janet and he said, What do I do?" And she looked back at him and she said, "You do it." Now, that guy had 90 days. He really didn't know how to work the steps, but one of the things he knew how to do was start with step 1. And I was ready to do step 9 by that point. I had 2 or 3 meetings under my belt. I wanted to rush out and make amends. And he said, "Let's start with number 1. Then we'll go to number 2, number 3. That's about as far as we got, to be honest with you. Like some of the relationships, it happens that we faded. But about a year plus, I got the same sponsor that I have right now. And we've been working together since that time, and that's almost 33 years. The two of us, Richard and I, have been very close, and it's not always the relationship that everyone can have or everyone does have. Richard's been the best man at my wedding. He knows my family very well. We've actually traveled to Japan and back together and visited my wife's family there. The most important thing is that Richard had a sponsor when I met him. My first sponsor did not. And Richard's sponsor had a sponsor who had a sponsor. And that's been the key to, I think, the success for our long-term relationship as sponsor and sponsee. It's that trust, it's that mutual working together and caring for each other and lifting each other up. But I think even more than that, the one word that I would describe would be humility. When I asked him to sponsor me, he remembered how hard it was when he had asked his sponsor to sponsor him. And that has been, I think, the most effective thing that has been passed down. My sponsor told me something that I've always remembered, and I pass it on over and over again. If I do not become humble, I will be humiliated. One of the most important things for me to remember when someone comes to me in that moment of need, of desperation, of, as we say, that drowning man reaching for a life preserver. I'm not quite the life preserver, but I can give you a hand to get to that life preserver. I can give you a hand and I can do it with you together. And I know that's the mutual humility that we need to share. I know how much it hurts. I know how scary it is, only because I've done it myself. I don't have anything more than my own experience, strength, and hope. That's how this program works. It's based on that level of humility. That is what I think exemplifies the program, and one of the primary ways that I find that it manifests in my life, and I can see it in others' lives, is how they sponsor other people, how they relate to other people, how they do service with other people in the program, in the 12 steps. So if you're new to this and you're not sure how to proceed, I think the most important thing is hopefully listening in the rooms, listening to other people and finding someone that you can tell, and maybe even asking them if they have a sponsor. If they have a sponsor and they know that that's a priority in their recovery, and it's something they've been able to do and they've been able to achieve, having a relationship with another person and working through the program together, that's attractive to me. If you're in the midst of having a sponsor and working with one, the most important thing is to recognize that it's mutual. So don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to spend that time with them and ask them to sit at the coffee bar and talk to them for hours. Get them on the phone. Ask them to work the steps. Every moment that I work with my sponsor, I was taught, and I can see it. That's how he proceeds in his recovery. That's how he grows in his recovery. And as a sponsor, that's really one of the keys to explain to someone that I'm sponsoring. First of all, it's an honor. Second of all, I take no credit for your recovery, and I take no responsibility for your relapse. But the third and most important thing that I say over and over again is, please recognize whatever you're getting out of this relationship, I'm getting 10 times as much. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. Don't hesitate to use me. Don't hesitate to have that time and that relationship with me, because that's how I recover. So we've covered the first 2 pillars right now. We're going to work on the next 3 pillars over the next couple of weeks. As always, thank you for being here. Please share, subscribe. I'll see you next week. Take care.